People are prone to making mistakes, and each of us has made at least one mistake in life that we deeply regretted. However, sometimes wrong actions can lead to the most terrible consequences. And in this video, I invite you to learn about incredible stories of people whose mistakes became fatal. Enjoy watching. Professional mountaineer Yasuko Namba made history as the second Japanese woman to conquer the 7 summits and the oldest woman to reach the summit of Mount Everest. This achievement took place on May 10, 1996, when she was 47 years old. Everest was conquered, and all that remained was to return to camp. However, Yasuko and her team members were caught in a fierce snowstorm, making it impossible for them to find their way back. Stranded on the South Col, Yasuko Namba and Beck Weathers became separated from the group due to extreme fatigue and hypothermia. At first, their colleagues tried to assist them, but eventually, it became clear that their efforts were futile. The expedition leader made the difficult decision to leave Namba and Weathers behind and return to camp without them. Once back at the base, the climbers organized a search and rescue team. The next day, Namba and Weathers were found in critical condition. However, it was deemed too dangerous to attempt a rescue, so they were left behind once again. Miraculously, Weathers survived and made it back to camp, but Namba succumbed to exhaustion and hypothermia. Unfortunately, despite reaching the highest point on Earth, this mountaineer never made it back home. What happened to 29-year-old Norwegian woman Anna Bogenholm may sound like something out of a science fiction movie, but this story is entirely real. In May 1999, Anna and her friends went skiing on a mountain slope near the city of Narvik. She was an experienced skier and never imagined that something could go wrong. However, an accident occurred when she fell and broke through a thick layer of ice covering a mountain stream. The ice immediately closed above her, leaving only her legs visible on the surface. Her friends tried to pull her out, but failed, so they quickly called for rescuers. Anna managed to survive thanks to a small air pocket between the ice and the water, but the freezing temperature took its toll. After 40 minutes, her heart stopped beating. It took the rescue team another 80 minutes to free her from the ice, by which time her body temperature had dropped to less than 14 degrees Celsius. Anna was rushed to the hospital with virtually no chance of survival. However, in an incredible turn of events, doctors managed to revive her. After 35 days, she emerged from a coma. 6 months later, she had fully recovered and was able to walk again, returning to normal life. In 1988, Australian filmmaker Andrew White was filming a documentary about unexplored places in Australia. The journey was thrilling, and White, along with his film crew, decided to explore the little-known Penguin Plains Cave. However, as their expedition progressed, heavy rains began, causing the cave to flood. The crew and the director found themselves trapped as the rising waters blocked their exit. The situation was made worse by the fact that there were no nearby settlements, meaning no one was aware of their predicament. Andrew White and his team managed to find a small dry area, but the water level continued to rise. Their only source of hope was that there was just enough space above the water for them to breathe. White made a desperate decision to swim out and seek help. Miraculously, he succeeded and was able to alert rescuers. In total, the crew spent more than 27 hours trapped inside the flooded cave. White had underestimated the risks of venturing so deep into the cave, and his mistake put not only his own life but also the lives of his colleagues in grave danger. In June 2003, Blake Stanfield and his elderly father, Neil, embarked on a journey through the Alaskan wilderness. They planned to kayak down the Koyukuk River and enjoy the scenic landscape, but their adventure quickly turned into a survival test. A few hours into their trip, their kayak struck a massive ice floe. The two men were thrown into the freezing water and swept away by the current. Luckily, they managed to reach the shore, but their situation was dire. They had lost their boat and all their supplies. Blake knew that they wouldn't survive without help, especially since his father was elderly. He set out on foot toward the nearest town, 104 kilometers away. After walking for an entire day, he became too weak from hunger and cold to continue. Desperate, he lit a signal fire and waited. Fortunately, a military helicopter pilot spotted the smoke and rescued him. Together, they returned to where Neil was waiting and saved him as well. Despite all the hardships, Neil and Blake survived. However, this journey served as a harsh lesson and a reminder of how dangerous the wild can be. In 2010, Ryan Reynolds, the well-known Canadian-American actor, starred in the leading role of the film Buried, directed by Rodrigo Cortés. During the filming process, the actor faced serious challenges that led to the development of a new phobia. In the film, Reynolds played an American soldier fighting in Iraq who was buried alive in a coffin with only a mobile phone and a flashlight. He had to spend an extended period of time in the confined space of the coffin, which resulted in him developing claustrophobia and suffering from insomnia. After filming, Reynolds decided to seek help from a psychotherapist because his mental state had been severely affected. In several interviews, the actor admitted to experiencing terrifying episodes of fear related to enclosed spaces, as well as suffering from panic attacks. Perhaps his decision to take on such a difficult role was a serious mistake, as mental health should always come first. The story of Ricky Meggie is an excellent motivation, as this man proved that even in the most dangerous situations, survival is possible. In 2006, 35-year-old Ricky Meggie was driving through a remote desert area, far from any road. After traveling quite a distance, he encountered a serious problem. His car broke down. No matter what he did, he couldn't fix it. So he decided to search for a road or settlement, but instead, he got lost. Meggie was stranded in the deserted outback for 71 days. He had no food or water and was forced to survive in extreme conditions. Despite this, he didn't give up. He built a shelter from available materials and survived by eating boiled frogs, lizards, and plants. He lost a significant amount of weight but managed to stay alive by collecting dew and drinking water from puddles. He was eventually discovered by workers from a livestock station, which saved his life. Meggie wrote a book about his survival, which was published in 2010. In 2018, a horrifying incident occurred in Thailand's Tham Luang Cave that could have resulted in the deaths of 12 children if not for the rescuers. The assistant coach of a youth football team, Ekafon Chanthawong, decided to give one of the boys a birthday gift by taking part of the team on a trip to the Tham Luang Cave. When they did not return home, their parents raised the alarm, and rescuers began searching for the missing group. Upon reaching the cave entrance, the rescuers found it almost completely flooded, which significantly complicated the rescue operation. Fortunately, the boys and their coach were found in a remote section of the cave, on a small island in the middle of the cold, murky water. It is worth noting that Tham Luang Cave is considered one of the most challenging cave systems in the world. Whether the assistant coach was aware of this or not is unknown, but his mistake nearly led to the tragic deaths of his young players. Timothy Treadwell was an American environmentalist and amateur naturalist. Among all wild animals, he had a particular fondness for grizzly bears. Beginning in 1989, he regularly visited Katmai National Park in Alaska to observe them. Over time, Treadwell gained extensive knowledge about these animals and completely lost his fear of them. He even began visiting the park alone and spending time near the grizzlies, even while they were hunting salmon. A few years later, Treadwell wrote a book about living alongside bears and then created a community called Grizzly People, where he united with like-minded individuals who shared his love for the animals. Scientists criticized Treadwell's actions, believing that he was making a serious mistake in thinking that the bears would never harm him. After all, they were wild animals with completely unpredictable behavior. Unfortunately, they were right. In 2003, a tragedy occurred involving Treadwell and his girlfriend, Amy Huguenard. A bear attacked their tent, which was set up within the Alaskan park. Both of them died from their injuries. Notably, this was the only recorded bear attack on a human in Katmai National Park. In 2017, a film directed by Matt Iskandari titled 12 Feet Deep was released. Its plot revolves around two sisters who become trapped in a public swimming pool after the manager activates the automatic acrylic cover without noticing them. While this is just a movie, a similar horrifying situation happened in real life. 19-year-old Chadar Bar, a nursing student from Melbourne, decided to visit a public pool in Orbost during the Christmas holidays. That day, no staff members were present at the pool, but that did not deter her. For unexplained reasons, the pool cover fell right where Chadar was swimming. She suffered a head injury and became trapped, unable to escape. What happened to American mountaineer Aaron Lee Ralston can be described as a true nightmare. On April 26, 2003, he set out alone for Blue John Canyon in Utah. At one point, he fell into a crevice and became trapped when a massive boulder fell onto his arm. Ralston understood that he would not survive for long, and even recorded video messages for his parents and friends. However, the climber refused to give up and continued to wait for help. On the fifth day, Ralston ran out of food and water. It was then that he decided he had to free himself from the trap. He took out his dull knife and amputated his own arm. After that, he walked many miles through the desert before encountering tourists who called a rescue helicopter. In 2004, Ralston published an autobiographical book about this incident titled Between a Rock and a Hard Place. In 2010, the book was adapted into the film 127 Hours, directed by Danny Boyle. During the attack on Pearl Harbor, 3 young sailors, Ronald Endicott, Clifford Olds, and Lewis Costin, found themselves in a horrific situation and, due to the inaction of others, ultimately perished. These 3 sailors were trapped inside the sunken battleship West Virginia. Despite their limited experience, they managed to find a chance for survival. The young men took refuge in a storeroom where there was air and began signaling for help by banging on the hull of the ship. Just imagine, they sent signals for 16 days. Some people that even heard strange sounds coming from the water, but paid no attention to them. Ultimately, months later, the decision was finally made to raise the sunken ship. It was then that the bodies of the unfortunate sailors were discovered. The story of French electrician Émile Loray once again proves that people should never give up, no matter the circumstances. In 1993, Loray was traveling through the Sahara Desert in his old Citroën 2CV. Suddenly, his car hit a rock, damaging the axle and swing arm. As a mechanic, Émile understood that repairing the vehicle in the middle of the desert was impossible. However, he refused to give up. Even though he had only a small supply of water and food, he decided to take a risk. Using parts from his broken car, he constructed a makeshift motorcycle that would allow him to reach civilization. The process took him 12 days. Amazingly, the motorcycle worked, and Loray successfully rode it to the nearest settlement. This unique vehicle still stands in Émile's yard as a reminder of his courageous and inventive actions in the desert. On September 17, 1788, a tragic incident occurred during the Battle of Karansebes, resulting in the deaths of a large number of soldiers. This event took place during the Austrian army's campaign in the Balkans. The army, consisting of 100,000 soldiers from various nationalities, was under the command of Emperor Joseph. After setting up camp near the town of Karansebes, a group of hussars crossed the river in search of Ottoman forces. Instead, they encountered a Romani caravan that sold them barrels of schnapps. The hussars, eager for a break from war, indulged in heavy drinking. After some time, Austrian infantrymen attempted to join them, but the drunk hussars refused to share the alcohol, leading to a heated argument that soon escalated into a full-blown fight. At that moment, there were no Ottoman troops nearby, but widespread panic ensued as Austrian soldiers mistook their own comrades for enemies. Officers tried to stop the chaos by shouting, "Halt!" But Balkan mercenaries misheard it as Turks, intensifying the confusion. This senseless conflict resulted in a bridge collapsing, causing about 150 soldiers to drown. Emperor Joseph II himself was forced to flee and nearly drowned in the process. The entire Austrian army abandoned the camp in disarray. Unfortunately, this was not the only case of friendly fire in history, but it is certainly one of the most foolish. Victoria Cilliers was an experienced military medic. She had successfully completed numerous parachute jumps. However, in 2015, in Wiltshire, she experienced an accident that made headlines worldwide. During a jump, Victoria realized that her parachute had failed to open. The same thing happened with her reserve parachute. As a result, she plummeted from a height of 200 meters. At a speed of over 95 kilometers per hour, she landed on a plowed field. By sheer luck, Victoria survived, but suffered severe injuries to her pelvis, spine, and ribs. During the investigation of this incident, police discovered that the culprit was Victoria's husband, who was responsible for ensuring her safety during the jump. It was suspected that he had deliberately sabotaged her parachutes in an attempt to kill her. This story proves that sometimes even the people closest to us cannot be trusted. Roy Cleveland Sullivan, a park ranger in Virginia, can be called both unique and incredibly unlucky. He became famous worldwide for surviving 7 lightning strikes. The first lightning strike hit him in 1942 when he was taking shelter from a storm in a fire tower. He was relieved to have survived and soon forgot about the incident. However, in 1962, he became a lightning victim again. That time, he was driving a truck, but fortunately, he survived once more. The next strike occurred in 1973 while he was patrolling the park. The lightning was so powerful that it passed through his entire body. In total, Sullivan survived 7 lightning strikes. Each of them was documented. He was nicknamed the human lightning rod, yet why lightning repeatedly struck him and how he managed to survive remains a mystery. Chimpanzees may seem like harmless primates, but in reality, they are quite aggressive, especially in their natural habitat. The story of 31-year-old graduate student Andrew Oberly serves as proof of this. On June 28, 2012, Andrew Oberly visited the Chimp Eden Sanctuary in South Africa to study primate behavior. He was simply observing the surroundings when suddenly 2 alpha male chimpanzees, Nikki and Amadeus, attacked him. They dragged the helpless man under an electric fence and pulled him nearly 700 meters. Fortunately, the sanctuary manager noticed what was happening. He rushed to help and fired shots into the air. The gunfire frightened the chimps, and they left Andrew alone. As a result of the attack, the man lost 1 ear and several fingers, as well as suffering severe injuries to his nose and feet. Following this incident, he had to undergo more than 26 surgeries. Michael Fagan became the first person whose mischief proved just how unprotected Buckingham Palace was. On July 9, 1982, he not only trespassed onto palace grounds, but also managed to walk through its rooms and enter Queen Elizabeth II's bedroom. Fagan first entered a ground floor room through an open window. However, finding nothing of interest there, he decided to go higher. By 7:15 a.m., he was already in the Queen's bedroom. Upon seeing him, Elizabeth II was, of course, frightened, and although Fagan assured her that he would not harm her, she still pressed the security alarm button. But no one responded. She then called the police. The surprising part of this story was that Fagan had previously sneaked onto palace grounds, and if he hadn't gone so far this time, no one might have ever known just how weak the security system at the royal residence was at the time. In 2008, the entire world learned about a bizarre story that happened to a woman from Kansas named Pam Babcock. In 2006, for unknown reasons, she chose to voluntarily confine herself in her boyfriend's bathroom. It remains unclear how she ate, drank water, or why she did this. However, Pam spent a total of 2 years in the bathroom. When the police finally learned about the situation, they immediately went to her boyfriend's house and detained him. Pam herself required medical assistance, as she had to be physically removed from the toilet and later had to move around in a wheelchair for an extended period. When Pam's boyfriend was charged with improper care of a dependent adult, he disagreed with the accusation, arguing that she had chosen to stay in the bathroom voluntarily for 2 years. However, wouldn't you agree that even in such a case, he should have sought professional help rather than enabling a mentally unstable person? Catherine Chappell was a well-known American visual effects editor. Her most famous work was the TV series Game of Thrones. On June 1, 2015, 29-year-old Catherine visited a lion park in Johannesburg, South Africa. She enjoyed the close presence of the big cats from inside her car. After a while, Catherine thought the lions were behaving quite calmly and had likely become accustomed to people. When a few lionesses were near her vehicle, she decided to take some photos and opened the window. This turned out to be a fatal mistake. Within seconds, a lioness lunged toward Catherine and bit her neck. She succumbed to her injuries before medical help could arrive. In 2017, a terrifying incident occurred in Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee, which, fortunately, had a happy ending. 18-year-old Austin Bohannon went on a hiking trip with his stepfather. In the dense forest, he fell behind and got lost. His panicked stepfather tried to find him, but all his efforts were in vain. The man then hurried out of the woods and immediately contacted the rescue service. Austin also tried to find his stepfather, or at least escape the forest, but he had no luck and ended up stranded in the wilderness. More than 100 rescuers participated in the search. They scoured the area on foot, used search dogs, and even deployed helicopters. Finally, after 11 days, Austin was found. Surprisingly, the teenager was in relatively good condition. According to him, he found the strength to stay calm and follow his instincts. That is what ultimately helped him to survive in the wild without food and water. On October 15, 1999, Nicholas White found himself in a nightmarish situation. That Friday evening, he stepped out for a cigarette break. As he was returning to his office on the 3rd floor, the elevator broke down and got stuck. At first, White assumed the issue would soon be resolved and that he would be able to exit. But things turned out differently. Time passed, night fell, and still no one came to his aid. Surprisingly, the elevator was equipped with security cameras that recorded the entire ordeal, yet they did nothing to help White. The man spent hours shouting for help and even prayed, but after exhausting all his options, he simply lay down on the floor. Nicholas was finally rescued after more than 40 hours inside the broken elevator. After his release, he filed a lawsuit against the building's maintenance company and was awarded a substantial compensation for emotional distress. During the 1908 season, an intense battle unfolded between two baseball teams, the New York Giants and the Chicago Cubs. A Giants victory in the final match would have secured the championship for the team. First baseman Fred Tenney was unable to play this match due to injury, so 19-year-old Fred Merkle stepped in for him. With a score tied at 1-1, Moose McCormick was on third base, ready to complete the game with a winning run. Merkle was on first base. Shortstop Al Bridwell hit the ball past the Cubs' second baseman Johnny Evers. Moose McCormick dashed to home plate for the winning run. At that moment, the crowd erupted in joyous celebration. Seeing this excitement, Merkle assumed the game was over and headed to the locker room without touching second base. Evers, noticing this, quickly retrieved the ball and delivered it to the base, preventing the winning run and giving the Cubs a chance for a third out. As a result, the teams ended the season with the same number of wins, and it was decided to replay the match. Merkle blamed himself for the rest of his life for this foolish mistake that cost his team the victory. In 2014, a curious incident occurred in the German city of Tübingen. A South Korean exchange student made a bet with his friends that he could climb inside an unusual sculpture called Intercourse. This sculpture, located on the grounds of the University of Tübingen, is a kind of landmark, as it depicts gigantic female genitalia. The students found the bet amusing, and on Friday, the young man attempted to climb inside the marble statue. However, things didn't go as planned, and he got stuck in the lower, narrower part of the sculpture. His friends immediately called rescuers. It took 5 emergency vehicles and 22 firefighters to free the prankster. This case became known worldwide, but the name of the daredevil, for obvious reasons, remained undisclosed. Scottish sailor Alexander Selkirk was known for his stubborn and quarrelsome nature from a young age. As a teenager, he ran away from home and became a sailor. His determination and resourcefulness were noticed, and after several years, he became the first mate on the ship of Captain William Dampier. This position further fueled Alexander's fiery temper, and during yet another conflict with the crew, he was marooned on the uninhabited island of Masa Tierra in the Juan Fernandez archipelago. Alexander had to learn to survive completely alone on the deserted island. However, the harsh conditions did not frighten him. He hunted wild goats, caught fish, and read the Bible. In total, he spent 52 months on the island. In 1709, he was rescued by a British ship, among whose crew was his former comrade, William Dampier. Few people know that his story left a lasting impression on writer Daniel Defoe, who later wrote the world-famous novel Robinson Crusoe. However, it remains unknown whether Alexander ever realized his mistake and why the other sailors decided to punish him in such a severe manner. In 2019, 3 fishermen set out for a routine fishing trip in the open ocean. However, disaster struck when their boat capsized. Miraculously, all three managed to reach the nearest small island, which turned out to be uninhabited. After recovering from the ordeal, the fishermen began to think about how they could be rescued. One of them suggested using palm leaves to spell out a distress signal on the sand. After doing so, they waited, hoping someone would notice them. Finally, after 3 days, a military helicopter spotted their SOS message and came to their rescue. As it turned out, their colleagues had been searching for them in motorboats, but were unsuccessful. These men were extremely fortunate to have been seen and saved. In 2010, an unusual incident occurred in southwestern China. A slender young woman was walking down the street while engrossed in her smartphone. Without noticing the storm drain ahead, she stepped right into it, getting one of her legs stuck. While her leg easily slipped between the metal bars, she was unable to pull it back out. Passers-by attempted to help by trying to bend the bars, but they were too sturdy. Seeing no other option, they called rescuers. The emergency team used special tools to cut the bars and free the girl. The entire rescue operation took less than 10 minutes. After this incident, she will likely pay more attention to where she walks and spend less time staring at her phone. After all, no one would want to end up in such an embarrassing situation twice. Experienced British skier Jamie Molnar frequently vacationed in the Swiss Alps. During one of his trips, he decided to ski down a dangerous slope where tourists were prohibited. Despite the restrictions, Jamie still went ahead with the descent. He was filming his run with a camera attached to his suit. At first, everything seemed fine, but then he suddenly fell into a 20-meter crevasse. His fall was captured on the video. Amazingly, Jamie did not suffer serious injuries and was able to get back on his feet immediately. After regaining his composure, he contacted his friends and informed them that he needed help to get out. An hour later, he was rescued, and the footage of his fall quickly went viral. Mud pits are dangerous because they are extremely difficult to escape from. Furthermore, anyone who tries to rescue someone stuck in a pit may end up trapped themselves. In 2012 in Atlanta, a worker fell from a suspended bridge into a mud pit. He suffered a severe back injury and was unable to get up. The longer he remained in the pit, the deeper he sank. Fortunately, his colleagues noticed what had happened and called for emergency services. At first, only one firefighter attempted the rescue, but when he also began sinking, the rest of the team had to jump into action. The operation lasted nearly an hour, and the worker was successfully saved. However, he required immediate hospitalization. Sometimes firefighters have to rescue people from the most unusual situations. One such case occurred in California in July 2018. A man decided to check the cement mixture inside an industrial mixer, but somehow lost his balance and fell into the rotating drum. Trapped waist-deep in wet cement, he was unable to free himself. Fortunately, his colleagues reacted quickly and called emergency services. According to Alameda County Fire Captain Richard Riggs, the rescue team managed to extract the trapped worker using a rope system and a ladder. After being freed, he was taken to the hospital but soon recovered and returned to work. Richard Nixon was the 37th President of the United States. In 1974, he found himself at the center of one of the most infamous political scandals in history, known as the Watergate scandal. This story began on June 17, 1972, when it was discovered that Nixon's campaign staff was involved in an attempt to install wiretaps at the Democratic National Committee headquarters. As the investigation progressed, the scandal gained momentum. Eventually, enough evidence was gathered to confirm the president's involvement in illegal activities, leading the U.S. House of Representatives to initiate impeachment proceedings. In July 1974, the Supreme Court ordered Nixon to release White House recordings, which confirmed his role in the crime. However, to avoid impeachment, Nixon resigned from office voluntarily. This incident remains the only time in U.S. history that a president resigned before the end of his term. By using wiretapping, Nixon sought to obtain information about the Democratic Party's strategies, which he hoped would help him secure re-election. However, he played with fire, and this decision turned out to be a grave mistake. Instead of securing a second term, Nixon was forced to leave office in disgrace. In 1929, an important event took place for college football teams, the Rose Bowl game. Two of the strongest teams, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets and the California Golden Bears, faced off. During the match, an unfortunate incident involving player Roy Riegels led to his team's defeat. In the middle of the second quarter, Riegels recovered a fumble. Standing just 30 yards away from the Yellow Jackets' end zone, he somehow got confused, turned around, and ran in the wrong direction toward his own team's end zone. His teammate, Benny Lom, chased after him, trying to warn him that he was running the wrong way. Just as Lom was about to reach him, he was blocked by the opposing team's defenders. Unfortunately, he was unable to prevent Riegels from making the mistake that cost them the game. On March 12, 2006, 19-year-old Matt Sutter found himself at the mercy of nature's destructive forces and miraculously survived. That night, a tornado struck the town of Fordland. At the time, Matt was inside an old trailer. He heard a strange noise resembling the sound of fighter jets and realized that the tornado was dangerously close. A few minutes later, Matt was caught in the powerful vortex, with winds reaching speeds of 200 kilometers per hour. He remained inside the tornado for several seconds, but for him, time seemed to stand still. Eventually, he was ejected from the storm. Later, it was discovered that the tornado had carried him more than 400 meters away from the trailer. This story became a sensation because, despite the extreme danger, Matt not only survived, but also avoided serious injuries. Moreover, he entered the Guinness World Records as the person who was thrown the farthest by a tornado and lived to tell the tale. This incident occurred in a major business center in Texas. Employees in one of the offices contacted emergency services, reporting strange noises coming from inside the walls. When rescue personnel arrived, they discovered that someone was trapped inside the air conditioning system. That person was Sean Johnson, a burglar who had attempted to rob several offices but miscalculated his escape route and got stuck. He had entered the building at night and remained trapped in the ventilation system for over 12 hours. What seemed like a brilliant robbery plan to Sean turned out to be a disastrous mistake that ultimately cost him his freedom. Water slides are incredibly popular attractions enjoyed by both children and adults. However, what seems like harmless fun can sometimes turn dangerous. News reports are filled with stories about various incidents in water parks. Here is one of the least serious cases. A young boy decided to ride an extreme water attraction. He was placed inside a capsule, and after a short countdown, the trapdoor beneath him was supposed to open, allowing him to drop into the slide. However, the mechanism malfunctioned and the trapdoor remained shut. To make matters worse, the capsule door jammed, preventing him from escaping. The boy was trapped in the enclosed space for more than 10 minutes before the doors were finally opened, allowing him to get out safely. In this photo, we see a group of friends who decided to take a dramatic picture above a precipice. One of them took things too far. He grabbed onto his friend's shoe and dangled over the edge. Of course, there are plenty of people who enjoy extreme activities, but would you agree that this action goes beyond all rational limits? He not only risked his own life, but also endangered another person. According to the photographers, just seconds after the picture was taken, the man fell. Fortunately, he did not die, as the height was not as great as it seemed. However, he sustained serious injuries and had a long recovery ahead of him. Hopefully, this fall taught him a lesson, and he will never make such a reckless mistake again. And that's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Your support is the best reward for me. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.